I gotta stop looking at the screen because of the delay. It's screwed.
Hey everybody, it's paint time. It's paint time with me and
Sean.
hooray! So yeah, thank you guys for coming in today. I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun because we got Sean working on the biggest of bugs, and by biggest of bugs, he's actually kind of like a mid-sized bug now. But you know, that's fine. He's in my heart, he's the biggest of bugs.
So this is the top half of him, and here's the bottom half, and they're separate, so that'll make it easier to paint.
Yeah. Sub-assembly is something that I rarely do, and probably to my own detriment.
Yeah, I found that if you got a big sucker, you want it, you kind of want it in as many pieces as you can. But so today,
Sean, you're a little off camera.
I'm off camera.
Just move to the left of it.
So so today, you know, as we wrote down on the kind of intro, I'm going to be working on Tyranids. I'm going to finish this guy. This is one of the ones that I'm doing for John.
Yeah, me.
So I wanted to show you. This is what John did up to this point, which was base coat and wash and some airbrushing of details. And so there's the clean side, which is, you know, ready for tabletop now. And here is the. Oh my God, this is so hard to track.
Yeah, you gotta kind of try to feel
well,
the.
It's so tight on the camera's so tight on it. And this is the detail, which is you know, going back in between the devours, all the random tubes, and now I'm doing the highlighting on the carapace. You can see the difference right there. So
Yeah. So yeah, Sean throughout the stream will be working on that and then taking breaks and moving into painting other things.
I'm also working on that's 1947. I have my SSU Russian power armor because I just love these stumpy little guys.
Oh yeah, they're gorgeous.
And I had the ability to. I was thinking about showing off my kind of like sponge painting method, but I have to. I might have to come later in the stream when I've got a base coat down.
Yeah.
Then finally, the last thing I'm going to work on is 15mm English footmen. Here we go for scale difference. Here's how these guys are tiny little guys. These are actually for a game called Field of Glory. So these guys are, you know, the era-wise are War of the Roses. These are Lancastrians.
So yeah, lots of stuff to work on and plenty of things to do in between steps.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is always important. Like we talk about that frequently. How to keep momentum and keep painting and all that sort of stuff. So it's always nice to have multiple models to work on. And it just kind of like maximizes your hobby time. So,
right.
I mean, obviously, do what you can to enjoy yourself, but
right.
If you're painting for a living, you should probably put yourself a little bit out to get the most efficient way to paint, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, the classic any freelance artist will tell you, never have just one project going.
Correct, yeah.
Though, you know, that has its own pitfalls, like, you know, burnout, going crazy, forgetting things.
Yep.
So, or it's the, oh my God, how much left? How much do I have left? That much, huh? Okay.
Yeah. So one of the things that we can talk about today, and we'll probably talk about tomorrow, something that I'm going to probably be hyping for a very long time. But they just announced a new edition of Monster Apocalypse.
Oh yeah.
So this was a game from Privateer Press that came out in 2008. and it was around for probably about 4 or 5 years until
We tried.
it basically disappeared off the face of the planet. And there's a lot of speculation as to why, whether it was like a contract thing or if just demand was really low. But don't really matter anymore because it's coming back out. And one of the things with this new edition is that it's going to be no longer a collectible game, so you no longer have to buy random boosters of monsters and units and all that.
That's my opinion. That might have been one of the contributing factors to why it went away.
Yeah, and so Monster Apocalypse had a very unique premise where it's giant monsters fighting over a city. And so when you bought a booster, like, they eventually divided the boosters into like monster boosters and unit boosters.
Right.
But when you only have like a variety of 12 monsters, like, and you keep buying boosters and you keep getting like the same 3, that becomes a bit of an issue, right?
Right. Like I don't need this character anymore.
Yeah, so that's gone away, and is now going to be a straight up miniature game.
With the important bonus that they're going to be assemble and you paint them.
Correct. Yes, and I want to say, I don't know if it's confirmed 100% yet or not, but it should be like all resin. I mean, Privateer Press is known for doing like a lot of hybrid stuff, so like resin, plastics, and
random metal arms.
Yeah, so I can't like say with 100% certainty that there won't be any resin or plastic or metal or plastic bits with them, but it looks like they're trying to shoot for resin, which is nice. I mean, just in terms of like ease of building and sculpting and all that sort of stuff, I prefer something like an all resin.
And based off the few designs that John showed me, they look pretty interesting.
Yeah. So they took the original designs and they cranked it up to 11. Like, they increased the scale of the game, which is super nice. So the models are going to
fundamentally, but certainly bigger.
Yeah. So like a little bit. Like they're probably, I'm bad at math, so I'm just going to say 20% bigger.
Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah.
And I think that's a good size jump, and it's going to make those like giant monsters feel that much more giant, right?
Sure. Especially if they keep the buildings the same size.
Yeah, exactly. So, and one of the things that they did talk about is in the starter box, they are going to have cardboard buildings with it, and they'll soon put out resin buildings to coincide with them.
Okay. But still, you could make do with your cardboard ones.
Yeah, which is nice. I mean, like, I think that's a nice feature, especially if people, like, if you want to keep the price point down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, some folks could just decide to keep with the cardboard buildings. And, cardboard buildings might not be, like, in terms of game stat wise, as good as the resin ones, but it's still an option, right?
Right.
And a person, like, that to me is a big deal, is having options. I've already, I think it's going to be a personal battle for me where people are complaining the fact that, they're going to have to buy new models for this game. And my thing is, if you're excited like me that this game is coming out, like, support it by buying the new stuff. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, you can't. No game is going to get by on, here's the new rules. Oh, don't worry about buying anything new.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be like Privateer Press, where the rules will be free, right? Like,
Yeah, I guess so.
You can just hop online, download the rules, and then start playing. And there's nothing really to stop you from using your old models to play with the new rules. It's just, tournaments and such like that will require the new stuff.
Well, I think, based off the few sculpts I've seen, there's certainly the new sculpts are definitely superior.
Correct. Yeah. Like, no contest. Like, sometimes I'll look at an old model and be like, oh, that has like some old charm to it. But with what they've shown with Monster Apocalypse, no. The new stuff is just strictly better.
I have almost never, seen a new sculpt of something and go like, oh, the old one's better. Almost never.
Yeah, so with me, it's generally like the derpiness factor that will let me like an older model. So, like, if it's a particular squat or clunky design.
Sure.
There's just something that melts my heartstrings a little bit.
Well, I can
like-
appreciate the good derpy factor, but still,
Yeah,
like
but yeah.
objectively better, no.
And especially with a game about like destroying buildings and all that, you kind of want those like giant badass monsters.
Sure.
So I for one welcome our new monster overlords,
Here.
and I'm hoping the information releases will be a steady flow from Privateer Press, but time will tell, right?
Right.
It would be nice if they keep, maybe a new Monster Apocalypse post once a month until it's released in fall. I would love to see it go through a CID cycle, but that would require a fair amount of testing.
Was that the public playtest?
Yeah, the public playtest. So if it went through a new CID cycle, you'd have to go through the base rules as well as the models they want tested.
Right.
Which, I mean, that personally seems like a lot for a CID, but
that could also extremely delay.
correct. Yeah.
Considering the kind of lead-in you have to do for printing and everything like that.
Exactly. So
So right now I'm working on. I've done the details, so I've gone back in, and it doesn't really show up very well on this camera here, but I've gone in here and highlighted all the tubes and veins, and also his the eye spots running along his carapace, which shares with the rest of the army. What do you think, John?
oh yeah, that's looking great.
Now I'm going in and painting the orange on his eyes and the eye spots on his devourers, which you can see on the underside here. Since it's a Tyranid, so even his gun has eyes.
Yeah, it helps him aim better. He actually has a terrible ballistic skill, but since he has those little antennae, it makes it a little bit better.
Well, go with volume.
Yeah.
He's got so many. He's got 4 of them after all. What is it? Hitting on 4s?
The original Carnifex is hit on 4s, but if you take the
4
enhanced,
isn't terrible.
I mean, it's Tyranids, right? So it's not great. But yeah, so the enhanced senses makes it hit on 3-ups.
That's good.
Yeah, which that to me is good. But he's like an expensive tanky creature, so you expect him to have some good stats.
Well, yeah. If he's going to be your kind of walking tank, you want him to actually be able to fulfill the role.
And hitting your target is part of that, right? At least vaguely.
Okay, what's next?
So yeah, Wolf Lynx is here with us a little bit. He came in early to get some Star Wars Legion demos, but also to talk a little bit about Monster Apocalypse.
I'm so gosh dang excited.
Move a little closer. Move a little closer to the mic.
It's been a while since I've been on the Giga-Cast. What was the last time when I shotgunned that beer?
Probably. Not saying you got banned from that, but
So little did I know that the commercial of the lovely John Collins shotgunning a beer, he was actually shotgunning apple juice. So
whoa, that is a trade secret.
I don't know what you're talking about, John. I didn't say a thing. I am incredibly excited about Monpot coming back.
So, to give people an overview, as Sean is typing some stuff, Monster Apocalypse used to be divided into 6 overarching agendas, which would be factions in other games.
I thought it was only 4.
No, there were 6.
Oh, I must have misread those.
But in this new edition, there is now just 2 overarching factions. The people who want to protect humanity, and the people that either want to enslave, eat, or murder humanity.
Dope. So who's on what side, John, of the factions we already had?
So it's the 6 original factions. So
Which are?
on the protection side, the protectors, it's Guard, which is your
Like Pacific Rim looking Jaegers and stuff?
yeah. So they're
They
the
look more to me like giant robo.
yeah. So
Or,
Like the engines and stuff.
Yeah.
Or Big O, because there's giant arms.
They borrow a lot of designs from classic kaiju movies as well as like their own spin. But Guard is like your big clunky robot faction.
Like pre-Gundam mecha anime.
Correct.
Big, clunky.
Yeah. What is it? Mazinger Z.
Yeah.
Like
that
so
classic like 60s and 70s stuff.
Yeah.
Where it looks like a fridge with arms and legs.
So
back when the robots were driven by little boys.
Yeah, Defender X in the preview art that they showed, like in the actual illustration, he's using his rocket fist. So you see his fist flying off of him.
Like a bull punch.
Like it's on the model, it's coming off. Like
No, not on the model, but in the illustration.
Oh, okay, cool.
I wanted that. That sounded great.
But yeah, so Guard is going to be your generalist human faction.
Makes sense.
And I want to say it's made from more or less the Allied countries, like so from like World War II.
America, Europe,
like
Australia,
America.
whatever.
Yeah. So anyone under that. So it's kind of like a world conglomeration of allied nations that are making these giant robots.
Getting so many Pacific Rim flashbacks.
Yeah. So the second faction in the Protectors is the Pterosaurs. Yeah, boy. It is as it sounds. It's giant dinosaurs.
So the best faction.
Correct.
Everyone else is competing for
where
second place.
pterosaurs want to protect
Third place.
humanity, they don't necessarily want to protect industry.
Raised hand. What faction or allegiance were they previously?
They were called radicals, so they still fit thematically. Where once again, pterosaurs don't necessarily care about eating humans or anything like that. It's more so about.
If I remember correctly from the instruction manual or something, it was like, hey, civilization is overstepped its bounds.
Correct.
We gotta step back on that biz.
Oh, Sean, you have a question. What kind of brush are you using?
This right here
good one.
is. Yeah, this actually. This is. I don't know. Actually, this is a pearl art brush.
And the follow-up question is there a comparison for like a Games Workshop or another hobby brush?
Yeah, this would be just like a basic detail brush.
Okay, basic.
I actually kind of I'm really bad on my brushes, and they kind of evolve over their careers as as they start getting softer or fraying or actually losing bristles. So they kind of they get new jobs. So this one is a kind of broad detail brush. It's getting a little soft, so it's also good for a quick wet brush. But then I also have this one right here, the snap brushes, which have the advantage that they're pretty cheap for brushes. But like this one is a what is it? This one's a 3.0. And I, of course, I'll also use the good old Army Painter detail brushes. But those are ones where you can tell you really can't see it because the brush is kind of frayed so much that now it's pretty much purely a detail brush.
Nice. Do you tend to use synthetic or real brush hairs? I'm assuming synthetic since you are a little rough on them.
That's just like with like canvas painting, I use a mix. But I mean, one of the weird things, of course, is you use real bristles. It gives you a better quality, but because they're real, they do not react well to paint.
Gotcha.
So you'll kill those brushes much faster than the synthetic. So kind of you actually just kind of burn through them much faster, especially the amount of guys I paint.
Yeah.
So my advice is if you want to paint, if you want to just kind of get the figures done, go cheap.
Oh, I didn't see that new picture.
So I just brought up the Monpok website because I was like, oh, John said there's new pictures of the new models, and first of all, he's right. These look like I didn't dislike the original models. They look very Saturday morning cartoon, but like you can tell that Privateer Pest has gotten exponentially better at sculpts in the last decade. These look astounding.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. To me, they always look like they look like the Godzilla cartoon.
Yeah. Like something I would see on Fox News at 10 in the morning. Or, I'm sorry, Fox Kids at 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
Fox News.
Oh, I mean, yeah, basically. It's just propaganda.
So yeah.
or like so you can see in the Hercules.
Yes.
Hanna-Barbera. Right there.
So yeah,
Very much.
Back to the factions.
These look sweet.
Pterosaurs were originally part of the Radicals, which meant
They were radical.
They were anarchists.
they're good guys, but they usually had an extreme motivation, right?
Yeah.
So like, the ones that we saw from them were all about saving the Earth more, like putting the Earth first.
Instead of humanity first.
Correct.
Well, like Godzilla protected it from Ghidorah, but didn't mean he wouldn't walk over half of Tokyo to do
Correct.
so.
Yeah.
I mean, if they didn't want their city stepped on, they shouldn't build it there.
The third faction for the Protectors is the Shadow Sun Syndicate.
And they're like the sort of Ultraman-y,
Yeah, it's very
Power Rangers looking
correct.
robots.
Oh, more
well, so
Ultraman.
Ninjas
no,
and stuff.
not. I wouldn't say not like the Power Rangers because the Power Rangers
Yeah, they got
Zoids.
big, like they look.
No, he's talking.
They look
he's
like
thinking,
big scale
like
Power
Ultraman.
Rangers. Very-
just like a guy.
Yeah. So it's basically a
What's
giant
the word for
dude.
that? I've got a friend who's into Power Rangers who's screaming at me through the screen right now.
But yeah, so the Shadow Sun Syndicate was
Not Sentai.
originally.
Like they look like that, but like scale 2 giant robots.
Yeah. So they actually look like a Power Ranger, just huge.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
they
like-
were part of the Collaborators faction.
Which meant they had
before.
like secret. They were
Yeah.
their own thing,
Like they're gonna save humanity.
but to motivate for
For
like
money.
profit. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And so yeah, Shadow Sun basically had an ulterior motive. So like, yeah, they're protecting cities and things like that, but what they're actually doing
It's
is
like a commercial for their products.
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff.
Well, that was Ubercorp.
Oh, right. They were the ones that built the robot.
Correct.
Robot
copies.
versions of the
Yeah.
kaiju.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Shadow Sun is basically using their defense like their giant defense robots as a way of gaining political clout or
They're like-
resources and things like that.
They were like an Asian megacorp or something.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And so that covers all the Protectors. So it's basically humans using some force or another. Because, like, the pterosaurs, at least in the original version, were guided by humans. Like, they were... pterosaurs were released, and they were basically led around, like, humans saying, like, hey,
So I'm
try to
thinking
go
like
over
the
this way.
most recent American Godzilla movie where they kind of lure Godzilla toward the big
Correct.
bugs to
Yes.
squish the big
Yeah, yeah.
bugs. But like Godzilla doesn't really give a crap. He's just hungry.
Yeah.
Or she or whatever.
It's asexual. He reproduces asexually. Don't you remember Godzilla 2000?
I've repressed that.
Matthew Broderick.
That's a lot of fish.
Sean P. Diddy Combs.
He was in that.
No, so he did. Remember in the like mid to late '90s, every movie had its like
A
own
rap
song.
sound. Oh, yeah. The 90s were a dark time. A dark, dark time.
But anyways,
So they say only 90 kids remembers, but I've repressed most of those memories because the 90s had problems.
so yeah,
Anywho.
that covers all the Protectors. So these are guys that are on the good side of things, at least from our perspective. And what that means is when you belong to the same agenda is that you can mix and match.
So I can have my freaking sweet Jaeger next to my pterosaur.
Correct.
Next to my Ultraman, and they're
Yeah.
all just beating the snot out of the aliens.
Yeah, so you can go with like a mono faction, or you can go like with an entire agenda.
Dude, that's sweet.
right?
Okay. Got the teeth. Ooh.
Yeah, it's amazing just how much a little bit of highlight brings a model together, right?
I am noticing on here that some of the factions from the original game aren't listed. Are they basing it on the original game's waves? Kind of, sort of.
Yeah, so let's go over the destroyers.
Yeah.
So,
Just if there are any other questions, just to,
no, just talking about, it was the guy who asked the question.
Okay. It's a good-looking Ned.
Yeah.
thank you.
But yeah, so
Speaking of aliens.
the Planet Eaters were probably, they're going to be like the signature faction that like comes out at release.
They're very kaiju looking. It's
Yeah.
what you're expecting from a game about giant monsters beating the soul out of each other.
Yeah, and they are very much like Saturday morning cartoon, like the old guy in a costume, alien costume from the Power Rangers thing.
Or
When you
something,
think
something like Gatchaman would be fighting.
Correct, yeah. So it's that kind of classic.
Thinking of like the kaiju you saw in Pacific Rim, where it was like kind of buggish, kind of reptile-ish,
Yeah, just
kind
alien.
of bioengineered weapon
I'm thinking
thing.
of the stuff that the Kamen Rider would be fighting.
Yes.
Some of those,
Very much so.
Yeah, and so their big shtick is that they are an alien, invasive species that doesn't really have a rhyme or reason. They just want to eat stuff.
Kind of Zergish.
Yeah. So without the like increasingly adaptability kind of thing.
This guy's so paunchy. I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, they're very close to the kaiju from Pacific Rim or like these Saturday morning cartoons.
A little more metal to them. They don't look. They look
Yeah.
like biomechanical. Almost.
Correct. Yeah. So
Can I
that's
see that one again?
Oh, here you go.
to me. I love the Planet Eaters because it is a wholly unique thing to Monster Apocalypse.
It doesn't look like, you can tell it's inspirations, but it looks very distinct from those inspirations.
And so,
like the palette and whatnot.
Yeah, I really enjoy that. And they were actually my starting faction for Monster Apocalypse because we
Pterosaurs not in Wave 1?
No, Pterosaurs were, but it was just me and my friends. We split a box, and one of my friends really wanted Pterosaurs, and I was like,
The John Galvin of that era is not recognizable to me.
correct.
The idea of you sharing dinosaurs with someone.
So I mean, it was nice though because one, I like the look of the Planet Eaters because once again we're talking about how visually distinct they are, and two, it was like always like I can just pick up Pterosaurs later. Like the initial wave, like let's get people into the game happy.
Exactly.
Still sounds really weird.
Yeah, I know, right?
John sharing, it's. I don't understand.
Deferred to someone else on dinosaurs. So this is
You were so generous, John. What happened?
so there he is. There's the top half of him done on this side. So check out it. There's the difference of what the detail does.
Is that a Kit Bash? I don't remember a Nid with antenna.
No. So basically, the old Nid kit had multiple head options.
Oh, really?
However, they didn't have rules for those heads for a couple editions.
They were just like
extra like options, and so you didn't see them used for a long time up until this most recent codex, where they gave the different head options rules again.
It's like this one's got acid breath, and this one's got like a tongue lash.
Well, one of them was allowed them to. That was the head to do that if he had like the bioplasma that he could breathe fire.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, and there's one with an acid maw, and then this one was the enhanced senses, so it gives you better sight and better ability to see stuff.
Yeah, he has 6 eyes and antennas.
Oh, well, there you go.
So yeah, his ranged ability is much better.
Dope.
Which is good because he's got himself healed.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm doing there's a base coat of a Dust Tactics dude. So I was going to do part of this just to show off the sponge painting method that I've developed. I found some tutorials online and I thought that was good, so I ran with it and really liked it because it's a good way to have weathering, either battle damage or just paint rubbing off at the edges, which I thought would look good to make these guys look as realistic as a stompy little potato robot can look.
Love those little potato robots.
They're super cute.
The reason I started the game was like, no, don't. Oh, they got these guys, huh? Okay, fine.
But yeah, so the other two factions for the destroyers will be the Martian invaders, which are going to be your War of Worlds Martians.
They look very much like that. Lots of saucers, lots of like weird, spindly, tentacly sort of
tripods out the wazoo.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the good old classic.
Yeah. And so those are really cool, and it appeals to a lot of folks who like that like classic sci-fi element.
When we were getting into the game, the thing I struggled the most with was picking a faction because very few of them were unappealing to me. So many of them are just very cool looking, very well designed, very distinct from one another.
Yeah.
There's only a couple factions like, I could take it or leave it. But the Martians look super dope.
So yeah.
Well, I'm assuming they look much like the old ones, just like.
Well, we don't.
Yeah, we've only gotten pictures of Guard and Planet Eater. So
well, if they took the old designs, but now they have the better sculpting and kind of better details, then yeah.
I'm of two minds because as someone who struggles with painting, them coming pre-painted was great, but like the level of detail in these things is nuts. So I guess I'm just gonna have to get good.
It's okay. That's the reason why we have this painting stream. We can teach you to get good.
Golly gee willikers, mister, you mean it?
Yeah.
Dope.
I will probably have extensive painting streams with getting the Monster Apocalypse stuff together.
As I was driving to work today, it's like, oh, this is going to be great. I can trade the 5 different combiner pterosaurs I got in our booster box. And then it was like, oh, they're new models. And like, dag nabbit.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's also been
it.
a bit of a point of contention with some folks with this announcement is the fact that they have to buy new models.
I mean, the game was dead, and now it's not. I'm gonna take what I can get.
Yeah, and it's like one of those things where I've been telling folks, just like, hey, listen, when the rules come out, bring your old models out, just use them, right?
Yeah, if you're playing at a tournament, get the actual things.
No.
But if you're just skirmishing with your friends on a Friday night,
No, the new game is still based off the grid, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's
So
still
the
going to be.
size of the models doesn't really matter.
Well, yeah, exactly. So like the new grid will be enlarged.
but
like,
it's the same rate.
Correct. Yeah.
It's the same. It's just
So even the old
slightly
models,
larger scale.
So even the smaller old models will still fit the grid just fine.
Correct. Yeah. And that's
Just use your imagination.
a big point. It's just like, hey, listen, play with the old models, try it out, because I'm sure with the new rules, you're going to buy it anyways, right?
And here's a chance to actually play the game.
Yeah.
Weird, huh? I'm loving the taglines for the factions of the website.
Yeah.
It's like Planet Eaters. All is edible.
Yeah, and so the final of the Destroyers faction is the Lords of Cthulhu, which, surprise, it's Cthulhu.
That's the one I'm
Giant
interested-
squid bats. You know what you're getting.
It's everything that you could possibly want from Cthulhu in a nice, neat little package.
It was a little too tentacle-y for me, but like it's
You shut your mouth.
it's not my thing. It's not
I-
my aesthetic.
Yeah, so Cthulhu stuff I like a fair bit. I just like it's hard to pick Cthulhu when you have a game with giant dinosaurs, giant planet eaters,
Giant bugs, giant fish.
Yeah. So like,
I don't know. That's a good. For me, that would be really tough.
so the Cthulhu guys, they look gorgeous. It's just like Will was saying, it's not technically my aesthetic, but I still appreciate how gorgeous those actual
I'm
models
happy that they're. This is the sort of game that anyone could get into because there is a faction that looks like whatever your Godzilla fantasy movie is.
are. Yeah.
If you want to see Godzilla beating the snot out of a giant squid or a giant robot or a giant weird-looking amorphous booger thing, there's a faction for you.
Yeah.
What do you think of the factions from the first game that haven't been released yet? Like, what is it, apes and fish and bugs? Which sides do you think they're going to take?
So that's actually a good question because one of the things that they stated is when they introduce, so they'll be introducing new agendas or new factions.
But it's still along the two agenda lines.
No.
Oh.
They said that eventually there'll be new agendas that come out.
Interesting.
So there could be.
They could go back up to the 6 or so from. I don't
Yeah.
think it'll be the same number or
Correct.
agendas,
Yeah.
but
Like so, there could theoretically be, a third agenda or a fourth one that comes out.
maybe the fish and the bugs take a nature agenda and we hate the humans and the aliens.
Yeah, and there might be one of those things where factions, like let's say pterosaurs are under protectors, but then the fish and the bugmen come out as a nature agenda. Pterosaurs could be added to that one as well. So they
dual
could-
faction.
Correct.
Dope.
And so that's kind of cool. And one of the more interesting things that they revealed was the standard game size went from one monster to two monsters
Oh,
per side.
sweet Jesus, yes.
So you can have double dinosaurs running across the board, or you can do your dream team tag.
Your Godzilla King Kong fanfiction.
Correct. Gross. But
Someone's
still.
been reading my diary.
So yeah, it's all pretty cool.
Well, not your diary, because monkeys are gross.
Yeah, we've all seen. Was it? I think it's Godzilla versus. Which is the one where him and Jet Jaguar team up?
What?
There was a good example because there was a Godzilla movie where an inventor created a giant robot that could grow to Godzilla size, and then he helped Godzilla to fight two other monsters.
I don't know.
pretty
There's
much-
60 different Godzilla movies.
But I know, but this pretty much. But this was in the Goofy era of Godzilla,
Yeah.
back when he had his son.
There's the Protector Humanity, and there's
Right, exactly.
Oh, Lord.
And there was the one where Godzilla did flying kicks, and
or he was sliding around the ground on his tail, and it looked absolutely ridiculous.
right, it was that era. So you had
Good times.
But the silly era. But
You remember when this series used to be about an allegory of nuclear apocalypse?
Yeah, and it was horrifying.
Nope,
Like-
I don't remember that at all.
Fun fact: Godzilla's skin is made to emulate the look of people who were burned from radiation.
I don't know
Well,
if
that's not a fun fact. It's a
Your
Fun
definition
fact.
of fun is
Distressing
not
fact.
mine.
Here's those fun facts again.
fun fact: we were all born to die.
Fun facts. Plague
How you
victim.
doing, Mikhail?
Good. I forget who posted it. I think it's someone we all know, but it was like something that they saw somewhere, and it was like fun fact: in Japan, nuclear power is death, destruction, and giant monsters. In America, nuclear power creates superheroes.
It's almost like
If
we
we
have.
look really, really
Yeah.
hard at
Probably
why that might be, we might be able to figure it out.
I'm not following, Mikhail.
Yeah, well, you know, we have bombs.
USA.
So excited about Monster Apocalypse.
We all are.
I know.
Even Sean.
This is turned into the Monster
Yeah, Sean.
Apocalypse stream. Forget painting.
What are you gonna play? What are you gonna play?
I don't know. The Cthulhu guys always sound interesting to me. But then there's dinosaurs. So
Yeah.
I'd have to see, especially now that the idea that I could actually
Pull people
pose them and paint them
Planet Eater thing
myself,
for Mikhail.
that'll change a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen it all.
I didn't see that.
Oh no, I'm excited. I'm gonna stick with Planet Eaters
They look gorgeous.
all the way.
Yeah.
Those fatties are
Look,
delightful.
he's so paunchy.
I know it's the best.
He's
Look at
full
these
of
gross
I'm gonna
little
airbrush
frog
some
bugs.
abs on there just for fun.
They are.
he's full
And
of
we can do it on the stream.
Yeah.
he's full of planets. Yeah, so
So excited.
I like that it was like Planet Eaters. Everything is edible.
Yeah.
I like the style a lot. It looks like it's a game that's just gonna take it knows what it is. And
It's
Yeah.
that, but updated.
It's very so Monster Apocalypse was always kind of on the campy side.
yeah.
Because like how serious can you be when you have giant dinosaurs fighting against like space
Aliens
ninjas?
and robots
Yeah.
and whatever. Yeah.
So-
it's very aware of what it is.
It's nice, but it doesn't take away from the fact like it doesn't take away from the gravity. Like you still want to win. You
Yeah.
still want to
It's
accomplish
still
these
it's a
objectives.
very it's a tabletop strategy game.
They've
It has
got some.
high level of
Yeah.
detail.
They got some pictures on the website of like custom paint jobs and stuff, and it's really exciting that you have that option now. Again, if you're not good at painting, you're gonna have to get good. But like,
at least the advantage of those big guys is it's a big figure.
yeah. So like when I first started getting the minis and painting and stuff, I was like, I got Kador, the one true faction, and I got through all my warjacks really quick because like, hey, lots of big flat surfaces. It's a robot. If you screw it up, it's gonna look like a poorly painted robot. No big deal. And then when I got to painting, it's like, oh, this is giving me anxiety because like we know what people look like, so when you screw it up, it's just super uncanny valley. But if you screw up a robot or a monster or whatever, it's no big deal because
Yeah, well, you picked the faction that had giant robots, and then wave upon wave of expendable little dudes.
yeah, well,
What is it?
mistakes were made.
For me, when
There you go.
when I feel like I'm painting a unit,
Okay, well,
it feels less like I'm painting a
that?
model and like I'm
15
doing like
mil-
an
yeah.
assembly line.
15
Yeah.
millimeter
It's a little
English.
bit harder to make.
Those are some small little dudes.
Yeah,
Goodness gracious.
and you're next to it. There's
Potato
your,
bot.
there's the size. There's your size comparison.
I love these gross
Do you find the 15 millimeter stuff more relaxing to paint than the larger scale, or is it all the same?
It's the same. It's certainly when you kind of paint it, you have to get in. You kind of get into the mentality, especially one, there's less detail in the figures. Two, you also learn to let go of details.
Yeah.
I don't need to paint the belt buckle, Though, sometimes I do.
I wish I had your degree of not giving a crap because I overanalyze everything.
No, it's me fighting my instincts there.
I have so many unpainted, small people-y models.
So speaking of small people models that are not so small anymore, one of the things that they revealed on the paint stream is the Sorsha bust. So
Do we know what the model looks like?
Yeah, they're painting it all stream. So it is a larger scale Sorsha that you can paint. It's more of a decorative item.
Oh, I think you're talking about Sorcerer 3. No, I saw the bust. Yeah, it's sweet looking.
Yeah, it's a like they have
big is it?
500. It's their standard bust size, so it's going to be like on a 50 millimeter base, but much taller than like an average warjack.
Okay.
And it's really cool. It's a nice collector's item, and it's also nice for someone to like practice painting flesh tones on because you are working on a larger surface.
Yeah, well, I've painted like 54 millimeter models, and certainly when you do that, you have to kind of relearn certain aspects of painting.
Yeah.
Is it or is that a fan made?
That's a fan made.
Okay, cool. I didn't remember seeing an arm on it. Let me see if I can hold it up on the internet.
Yeah,
These are all fake.
when I would paint some 55, 54 millimeter. the first one I painted was like the worst one. In my opinion, the worst one to learn how to do 54. It was a Samnite skirmisher, so he was mostly skin.
Oh, good.
He was this little, he was early Roman era. So he was wearing a tunic, and then he had bare legs with some greaves, and bare arms, and and you could see his face, and it was like the worst one to learn, because then you're like, because you have these broad areas that have to be painted, and you have to make sure that the transitions are much smoother.
Correct.
You can't do the 25 millimeter scale highlights, because it would look like he would end up looking like a clown. They'd be too strong.
Yeah, there is a lot of subtlety you have to learn on doing like a bust, right?
Right. Well, just anything where that, I mean, especially on a face, because if you get that wrong, your audience immediately goes, "That's not what a face looks like."
Yeah.
What Will was saying earlier is like, you see that every day, so it's easy to spot differences.
Yeah.
My students will say that some of the hard stuff to draw are faces and hands.
Correct.
Because those are things you see every day. So you kind of second guess yourself, and if you get them wrong, it just looks so wrong.
Yeah, I took a class, which was probably my most formative class at SCAD, which is called Constructive Head Anatomy.
Ooh, that's a great sounding class.
In which you studied with a guy who did forensic reconstructions for the FBI.
Oh, neat.
So he would go over all of the, like...
The landmarks?
Yeah, all the landmarks, like what the fat pads would look like on the face, what the muscles did on the face, where the muscles were at. And anytime he did a drawing lesson, he preceded it with a sculpting lesson. So day one, you started with an orb, and you had to cut the orbs down and put a geometric shape on the bottom of it, which was the core structure of the head. And then after that, as you learned a muscle or a landmark bone for the face, you would add that to that sculpture, and then you would draw it. And through
super cool.
Yeah, through the course of 10 weeks, you would learn how to draw a face by doing that breakdown.
That sounds amazing.
It was amazing class, and so he used to do constructive. Huh?
I'm so jealous. That sounds awesome.
So he used to do that for the FBI, where they would hand him a human skull, and he would have to tell the FBI what this person looked like when they had skin on it.
Sure.
In which he had like a 90% accuracy rating with it for identification. And he left the job because the FBI was like, well, we have a computer program that can run it. You got a call back in 6 months saying that their accuracy percentage had plummeted.
Yeah.
Because once again, like, like, you got to know when to bend the rules. And the computers aren't necessarily good at that, right?
Well, as I found that, it can only, if it goes like, well, maybe it could go like this. Well, computers don't do maybe it could go like that. Okay, so I'm going to show how to do the sponge method of doing the thing. You show again a completed one. It's a very it produces a kind of battle scarred and chipped appearance of the paint. So my first one, usually the first pass is actually these are just like bits of the foam that come in the back of miniatures. Chopped up, and I'm going to do I had a base coat of the Baneblade Brown, which ironically is almost the same color as the original primer that these guys had. I'm not sure why I create more work for myself, but I do. But
I know that feeling.
So I'm just kind of I got some. Then I go with some Rakarth flesh, and because I'm more or less kind of breaking up the original surface, so it looks like the primer coat of the mech is visible. So just kind of dab it on, and kind of a dry brush method, but I'm only doing part of him just so I can get to it.
Yeah.
But
That's one of the things working for a paint stream that I need to get better about is just like doing a section for time's sake, so you can show people like the full results, right?
right.
So.
Well, that's why on cooking shows they always have one ready.
Yeah, Sean, you should just reach into the oven and pulled out like a painted model.
Or have one already. That's why I brought the finished.
He hides it under his hat.
Yeah. I would
My secret.
I would lose my mind if Sean just lifted his hat to say goodbye and you can just see like a fully painted like dust army under there.
It's magnetized.
Yeah.
No way I could fit all that.
Just the cute little potato bots.
So, weirdly enough, the kind of first one doesn't really show up too well. Maybe it shows up better on an actual stream, but there you go, Will. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So there's the first.
Super cute. And that's the Soviet faction from Dust?
Yeah.
Part of the Soviet.
Well, it's the.
The best faction, the.
Yeah.
Okay. Next comes. So I'm going to come back in with a Rhinox hide, so it gives me a nice rust effect. So I kind of just brush it on and let it adhere to high points, like say corners of armor, tops of joints, that kind of thing. Places which, in theory, the paint would just rub off or get scored off by action, enemy fire, that kind of thing. Any painting questions?
No, just a lot of folks watching.
Okay. Hi, folks. Okay.
I might have shared this on my wall as come watch the paint stream, but I'm just going to derail this about Monster Apocalypse anyways.
Oh,
We knew what we were getting.
that's fine.
I am super excited for that.
I love that, like 2 or 3 years back when I was doing that, one of those Facebook apps, like, see what your most posted words were, and mine were John Galvin just from tagging you and stuff about dinosaurs. My most frequently used word on Facebook for a whole year was John Galvin.
Hey Ross, thanks for coming by.
Hey, Ross. John Galvin, huh?
See who's watching. Hey Matt, hey Daniel, hey Dakota, hey Emily. Good stuff.
Emily's working on our GigaCon shirt for the year.
Ooh.
So she's doing the logo and t-shirt design for our War Machine and Hordes event.
I'm going to pretend to be incredibly stupid. What's Giga-Con, John?
So it is our annual War Machine and Hordes tournament, and it's like the big one. It's the big one that we have every year. So we have people coming in from all over the Southeast to come play in it, and the winner gets a ticket to War Machine Weekend and a spot in their invitation.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, so we're getting some pretty cool prize support for it this year, both from Privateer Press and then also from the community itself. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's pretty cool, and it will definitely be a banner year for GigaCon. Just because the community in general has grown and changed a lot for War Machine.
Frame of reference, what was like our attendance last year?
So last year, when it was probably at the, like, I hate to say it, it was at the lowest point.
Sure.
We were like, oh man, like, I don't think we're going to get enough people to come do it. We got like 32 people.
Okay, maybe a bad example. What was it like 2 years ago?
No, 32 people is actually really good.
Oh, okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so for a bad year...
My frame of reference is totally blown out by like 100-player Magic events.
It's much different for wargaming events.
Sure.
But 32 was like basically what we needed to keep it going, which was
Excellent.
fantastic. It was really nice to see the community come together to show up and play for this event.
So this year's going to be nuts
support
because there's been so much great content.
Correct.
Like all the new models, the new
Yeah,
factions
so-
and stuff. It's like,
so
hey, sub-faction every year. Get
With
hype.
GigaCon, we should see at least the starter for Crucible Guard showing up for it, so people could play Crucible Guard if they wanted to.
So as loyal Khador citizen, they can all go directly to hell.
Yeah.
But they're cool looking models.
Yeah, and so
Actually, I did want you to. I was curious about that. I was figuring you could tell us about those.
yeah, so I'll talk about the Crucible Guard in just a second. But for GigaCon, we should see a lot of people in. We have a lot of people from around the southeast who have been consistently driving out for our tournaments, and
And we super appreciate it.
yeah, no, and I mean, in all seriousness, like. The people willing to travel really makes the community great because it brings in outside elements of the meta, right? So,
It is easily my favorite part of any of our quarterlies is seeing the dudes come in from like Alabama, South Carolina, Mississippi.
and they bring crazy shit every time. Like it's so Atlanta, like so people in Atlanta, the War Machine meta will stay fairly stable, right? Like like
And it's true for Magic too.
yeah, you have a fair idea of what you're going to play against on any given time, and
You
then
know
we
your
have.
locals and you know what they like.
And then we have Corey Dobelshin show up with some crazy troll combo, and no one in the Atlanta really has played against that combo. And he played 4 very hard rounds, and he ended up winning. And that's something important with traveling, right? Like expose people to new ideas and new thoughts. But we're expecting to get a lot of that for this GigaCon coming up, which I'm really excited about. So I'm hoping, I would love to see 64 players up here for the event. And that would mean a lot of prize support and things like that for the event.
Which year did I day 2 by some miraculous twist of fate? Was that 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think it was a couple of years ago. Yeah, Will Blanks.
I somehow managed to day 2.
I kind of twisted his arm to come play in the event because I wanted more people in the event, more people to try to play. But yeah, through the power of Khador,
And good tiebreakers.
yeah, Will got into the second day.
I immediately got curb stomped, but like it was amazing. It's one of my favorite memories of Giga-Bites.
Yeah, and still that's a big important thing for the store, which is great.
I think my best match, it was, I don't remember who it was, but it was one of Scorn's players, and he went for an assassination on turn 1 and flubbed it, and I was playing Butcher 3, because
Yeah.
of course I was, it's Mark 2,
Yeah.
it's the best thing ever, and I just wrecked him, but like, I got lucky that round, so, I not to dump on myself, but I did not earn that day 2, I got lucky. But it was still tremendously fun.
And that's something that can happen with these events is...
Was that the year I got a picture of you licking Max Lamon's wooden trophy?
Probably.
That was amazing.
I mean, I do that pretty much every tournament, but that's fine.
I'm going to earn your Facebook profile picture again, John.
That's fine. So yeah, GigaCon's going on, and one of the exciting things is that Crucible Guard, in at least some form, should be available.
Now, who are the Crucible Guard, John?
It is the new faction for War Machine and Hordes.
And this is one of those mini factions that are coming out once a year?
Correct, yeah.
Sweet.
So it is a one-and-done release
Nice
for
rust effect.
War Machine and Hordes.
So kind of like Convergence, but a little smaller?
No, it's about the same size.
Okay, cool.
And
So we should see the same release cycle, like maybe one new model every 2 years or something
correct,
like that?
yeah. And one of the neat things about what they're doing with these mini factions is that they're giving ways to tie it into another one. So Crucible Guard is a group of mad scientists that are more concerned with inventing the cool new thing than they are necessarily about the borders of a nation, right?
I mean, like, science is cool, John.
Yeah, and so they're less concerned about who owns what and more of, can I make this thing explode and how much?
I can respect that.
And so they get drawn into the war through basically an outsider. So
Now, they're from Lale, right?
yeah, so they were originally part of this world's French-esque nation
Which is currently being occupied by Khador, which is
and Protectorate.
Wow, they have no luck.
Yeah,
So they're being occupied by Steampunk Russia and the Crusaders.
yeah. So it's in Ashland, who's part of the Leylee's resistance.
She's
has
a
con-
Lele's Warcaster, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has convinced Crucible Guard to get back into the fight to help kind of reclaim some borders and all that sort of stuff.
So what's cool is previously there have been a bunch of Lele's models that were various mercenaries, so they'll be able to tie in.
Oh, that's where they come from.
You'll be able to play Crucible with Leylis and yada yada.
Yeah, exactly.
So it goes one way but not the other, right?
Yeah, so like Crucible Guard can employ certain mercenaries, and then for the Leylis Resistance Theme Force and Mercs, you can bring in at maximum 2 Crucible Guard units.
Okay, so when you're playing Crucible Guard, some of the Leylis mercs will have partisan rules now?
Yes, only 2. And that's Gormandy Wolf, who is an alchemist from the Golden Crucible.
Is he the
Black-
smoke mask guy?
Black trench coat, top hat.
He's the
throws
guy who's in
bombs.
every army.
Well,
he's
he
nuts.
was.
He's not in my armies.
I just
And
remember
then
that
Hutchuk.
I just remember.
Hutchuk!
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love Hutchuk. He's so cool.
So he is partisan Crucible Guard.
God, his flail is gigantic. I love that dude.
So yeah, with this new faction that comes out, they favor flexibility and weird effects on their weapons. So their raw damage output is not like Khador, right? Khador is very like, I have big armor, I have big damage. Crucible Guard's like, I have little armor, little damage, but I can do a lot of cool things. And so,
Just to interrupt, I just wanted to show you. This is this is the pass with the sponge method. So they make this armor look nice and worn, beat up.
yeah. No, that's looking great.
Especially since this is like the commander of the army. So
Yeah.
his armor is like the oldest and like
He's seen some things.
he's seen some things.
And some stuff.
Well, I mean, the kind of fluff for these guys is that every one of these is piloted by a veteran.
Yeah.
Because they're all like quadruple amputees.
Yeah.
That's why that's why they're sitting in these little stumpy. That's how they fit in this stumpy armor. They don't have they don't have arms or legs.
You made the cutest model in the game super depressing. Good
Kind
job,
of like
Sean.
a dreadnought from 40k, right?
Yeah,
So like,
exactly. They're too injured to fight otherwise.
Oh, it's a bunch of little Karchevs.
Yeah.
Yay!
Right.
I love my dumpy potato man.
So, so Crucible Guard is this new experimental French faction. It's currently in its beta test right now on cid.privateerpress.com, but we'll see the full models and rules come out in June, and retail stores should have it starting July. So, yeah.
Tell me about some of the cool models in the faction, because I know they got like that Jekyll and Hyde thing, and they've got like a sentient robot and all sorts of weird, cool stuff.
It's not a sentient robot. It's actually a brain in a jar.
Oh,
So,
so he's not artificial intelligence.
yeah, think Richard Nixon from Futurama.
Does he have a headless spear Agnew driving him around?
No.
That's a
So they're journeyman warcaster. So in this setting, having the ability to power or run these giant steam automatons is very rare. And so when you have it, they want to keep it. The nation that controls it wants to keep it. So even if you're reduced to just a brain in a jar, they're going to throw you in a metal body and keep you on the field.
Karchev's what, like 300 by now?
Yeah, something like
He's
that.
an old, miserable torso who just wants to die.
So just like these, just like my little potato robots.
Yeah, so Karchev wants to die, but he wants his nation to
Like, he
be
wants to serve his
number one.
country, but he also wants to die.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, thank you so much. I know we were talking a lot about new games and things like that coming out, but we hope you guys enjoy the painting stream, and I really hope you guys are painting some awesome models, and anything we can do to help, let us know. Ask questions, ask for us to show you new techniques and things, and either me, Sean, or Mark will be happy to help you with that. So until next time, Sean, say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Will.
See you, folks.